Dear friends, welcome to our channel. Today we have a male topic, chronic prostatitis. False or true? Immediately I want to emphasize that the program will talk about chronic prostatitis, not about acute. But why such a strange name, prostatitis, lie or truth? The thing is that prostatitis is such a topic, about which everyone thinks that they know everything, but in fact on this topic spreads a lot of fictions, errors and even lies. And these lies lead to errors in diagnosis, to errors in treatment, and even to family tragedies, as I will tell you below. So, lies or truth? Well, point 1. The most frequent symptom of prostatitis, so many people believe, is a decrease in potency. Or, let's put it another way. If a man has decreased potency, it's almost always due to chronic prostatitis. Is this really the case? Say, if a man comes to a urologist with complaints that he has decreased potency or he has accelerated ejaculation, he does not have time to satisfy his woman. Many urologists, unfortunately, will say that this is due to chronic prostatitis. But in fact, and the decrease in potency, and on the contrary accelerated ejaculation, this is not the most important, and by no means the most important symptom of prostatitis. The most frequent symptom of chronic prostatitis is pain. Well, where can these pains occur? In the perineum, under the testicles, between the testicles and the anus, in the lower abdomen. Sometimes these pains occur in the sacrum. Well, and sometimes even in the rectum. These pains are the most common symptom of chronic prostatitis. These pains can be constant, they can be aching, they can be nocturnal. But perhaps most often these pains occur after so-called excesses. What is an excess? Let's say that a man is used to having sex, or, even self-pleasure, once a day, 2, 3, 4 times a week. And suddenly on some day a man had a special case, had 3 to 4 sexual acts in a row, or 2 to 3 orgasms, and this is exactly what is called an excess. After such a case, very often in chronic prostatitis there are those pains, which we talked about above. By the way, when exactly will the pain appear? It can occur during this sexual contact or immediately after it, and sometimes it occurs at night, after this sexual excess. In addition, pain in chronic prostatitis and can lead, on the contrary, to prolonged sexual restraint. That is, it can also be the cause of painful sensations. The second important symptom of chronic prostatitis is the faded orgasm. That is, the orgasm seems to be and it is as if it is not even there. Well, that is, in any case it is not as bright and clear as before. Is also one of such important symptoms of chronic prostatitis. The third important symptom of chronic prostatitis is unpleasant sensations, burning, some irritation in the area of the urethra, and these unpleasant sensations and slight burning, it can even lead to more frequent urges to urinate. Just not to be confused with the frequent urges that occur with adenoma. In adenoma, these urges occur at night, that is, a person often gets up at night, he has a feeling of pressure on the bladder, and here the urges arise precisely because there is irritation inside the urethra. What else needs to be mentioned, and this is important? Chronic prostatitis, in addition to these basic symptoms that I've already told you about, can lead to general symptoms. This is chronic irritability, some kind of incomprehensible fatigue, lack of sleep. Well, there are some general sensations, which, of course, do not necessarily manifest themselves brightly, but nevertheless can also be. False or true? Point 2. If a man who has chronic prostatitis comes to see a urologist, then many urologists will say that this chronic prostatitis has arisen as a result of some infections. Well, for example, it will be Gardnerella, Oreoplasma, Mycoplasma. And these infections, which will be identified by such a urologist, the man will be offered to treat with antibiotics. Yes, by the way, they'll also say to treat the wife with antibiotics, and because of that, there could be a family quarrel. This family tragedy, because either a man or a woman, i.e. the wife, will think where this contagion came from and who brought this contagion into the family. Well, and as a result there are family quarrels with all the ensuing consequences, up to divorce. Is all this right? No. Wrong. In fact, most of these alleged infections live inside the body and they are in fact infections. Just with some inflammation, With a decrease in immunity, these alleged infections, they come out and they can be detected in the analysis. But once again I emphasize, they are in the body of almost every person, and in no case do not need to treat them with antibiotics. But what infections really need to be treated with antibiotics are gonorrhea, pneumonia, chlamydia. But it is these infections, they more often lead not to chronic prostatitis, but still to acute prostatitis. Point 3. Many people believe that the most common cause of chronic prostatitis is hypothermia. Well, sometimes hypothermia can cause chronic prostatitis, and this problem concerns people who work in cold rooms, work in winter, but still hypothermia is not the most common cause of chronic prostatitis. Much more often to chronic prostatitis leads to a sedentary lifestyle, and that is why chronic prostatitis is very often sick office workers, i.e. workers, drivers who spend all day driving, well, for example, truckers. That is, people who sit all day in a chair, or in the driver's seat. These are the people who get chronic prostatitis especially often. Why does a sedentary lifestyle lead to chronic prostatitis? It's very simple. Sitting leads to congestion in the pelvic organs. And congestion, respectively, over time can lead to the development of prostatitis itself. Another common cause of chronic prostatitis is irregularity or disrupted rhythm of sexual life. Especially if a man had a long break, well, it happens, for example, in long-distance sailors or drivers who have a long job, that is, when a man for a long time was not intimate life, and then the man came home and is trying to catch up with his wife. That is, after a long break, or vice versa, very active and very frequent sex. And here, strangely enough, this rhythm of sexual life also often leads to the development of chronic prostatitis. Well, dear friends, let's move smoothly to the treatment of chronic prostatitis. From what I have told above, it becomes clear that antibiotics for the treatment of prostatitis are used quite rarely and only by indication, that is, when there is a real infection. What is important to do in the presence of chronic prostatitis? It is to establish a regular sex life at least 2 to 3 times a week. That is, there should be a regular sex life. To improve blood circulation, of course, running is useful, but even more useful, from my point of view, is proper walking. What's the right kind of walking that's good for prostatitis? I call it bushman walking. You've seen how these very bushmen who live in Africa walk. They walk with such a wide strides, with such, let's say, average speed. From my point of view, this kind of wide-spreading walking is especially useful, given its simplicity. Of course, in our urban conditions, such a sprawling walk, it will look strange, so it is not necessary to walk like that. Even just walking May 7th, 10 kilometers a day, of course, with prostatitis will be useful. If you do not have the opportunity to take long walks, you can do special Kegel exercises, for example. In addition to these exercises, except for running and except for walking, in wintertime is useful skiing and skating, but of course, it is important not to get hypothermic. At all other times swimming is useful, and again it is important to swim, but not to get overcooled. That is, do not swim for long periods of time in cold icy water. The next point of treatment, we need to increase immunity, and this is natural. How do you boost immunity? Well, I'm very fond of a medicinal plant called aloe. Usually to boost immunity I recommend a course of treatment with 10, sometimes 15, but in extreme cases 20 shots of aloe. We do these shots every other day, but I emphasize that we do them only if you do not have any contraindications. And it's also important to know that these shots are quite painful. In addition to aloe, what drugs to improve immunity can be used? It is believed that in male diseases it is not bad to use such medicinal herbs as ginseng, radiola rosea, that is, the so-called adaptogens. I can recommend one unique new solution for prostate health. The link to this product will be in the description of this video or in the comments. And of course you need to get enough sleep. By the way, from the point of view to improve the nervous system, to improve sleep and again, to improve immunity, in some cases you can take B vitamins and maybe even do a course of treatment with these vitamins in injections. Another important point of treatment is to reduce coffee consumption, if you are used to drinking coffee often and a lot. You need to reduce the consumption of alcohol and the consumption of sweets. This is especially important if you have type 2 diabetes mellitus, because type 2 diabetes mellitus is one of the provocateurs of many diseases, including the development of chronic prostatitis. And that, dear friends, is probably all for today. Stay with us, subscribe to our channel and be healthy. All the best.